Nintendo has a reputation for being rather trigger-happy when it comes to lawsuits. If you're a Sonic fan and want to draw Sonic fan art or even make a Sonic fan game, you're free to do so. Not only does Sega turn a blind eye to this fan content, they've even hired members of the fan game community. Nintendo, though, is the opposite. The company has issued hundreds of takedown requests for Mario and Zelda fan games. According to late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, the only fan content Nintendo takes down is that which socially diminishes the dignity or value of our intellectual properties. In other words, draw Mario jumping around the Mushroom Kingdom and you'll probably be fine. But put a knife in his hand and you can expect a knock at the door from Nintendo. Except, in practice, that doesn't seem to be true. Over the last decade and a half, we've seen almost every major Nintendo fan game get removed from the internet. The Pokemon company's even worse. Pokemon Uranium, a fan game in development for 9 years, was taken off the internet less than 2 weeks after release. Ouch. So when I tell you that in 2017, Nintendo filed a $29 million lawsuit against another game developer, alleging that they'd infringed on Nintendo's patents, well, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was yet another case of Nintendo abusing their legal power. But by the end of this video, I'll show you that not only did Nintendo have the legal right to sue this company, but doing so may well have helped the entire games industry. Let me tell you about the one morally good Nintendo lawsuit. Part 1. The Code of Honor. So we need to start with a short history lesson. Back when arcade games were just breaking through into the mainstream, the Japanese games industry faced a problem with patents. According to industry analyst Hisakazu Hirabayashi, around the time arcades spread across Japan, patent disputes were frequent. As you know, patents can be applied for by anyone, even if they're not the manufacturer of the product in question. Under this system, there were often incidents where complete outsiders from the games industry registered patents relating to popular games. This posed a real threat to the fledgling games industry, but studios soon responded. They began patenting almost every idea they had, even totally basic ones. SNK patented the idea of the title screen. Namco apparently patented the high score list. You might think this would totally stifle innovation in the world of arcade games, but that's not what happened. None of these companies actually enforced their patents against each other. Heck, they knew that a lot of the patents wouldn't hold up in court anyway. No, the real purpose of registering all these patents was to stop companies outside the industry from registering them first and using them to extort game manufacturers. This was, in a weird way, the industry uniting against a common threat. According to Hirabayashi, the reason why there were no fierce legal battles was that game manufacturers operated under a kind of code of honor. You might have violated my patents, but I might have violated yours too, or I might violate them in the future. And this system of patenting almost every possible idea has continued on right up to the present day at companies such as Nintendo. Former Nintendo of America employees, Kit and Krista, have talked about how Nintendo's developers are encouraged to register any and every new game mechanic or idea as a patent.
Most of the time, it's like, just patent on all of it as much as you can, because you don't know what you might use.
For The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo registered a whopping 31 patents, covering everything from the game's unique physics system to aspects of the loading screen. However, if you think back, you might have noticed something. Have you ever seen a single news story of Nintendo weaponizing their patents against another game manufacturer? I'm not saying it never happens, but it's extremely rare. You might say that even if they're not weaponizing them, Nintendo shouldn't be registering so many patents. And in an ideal world, I agree. But in 2013, the exact thing arcade manufacturers were trying to prevent happened to Nintendo. A company outside the games industry sued Nintendo for their Wii motion controls. Apparently, the Wii Remote violated the patents of a company called iLife. It took 7 years for the case to finally be dismissed. So, Nintendo registers all these patents to stop them being registered by someone else first. But do they use them against other game makers? Almost never. And it all comes back to that code of honor from the era of Space Invaders. But in 2008, a new company entered the games industry called Kalopla. And it didn't seem like Kalopla was willing to follow this long-standing code of honor. Part 2. A year of discussions. So, in 2003, a man called Naruratsu Baba developed a mobile game called Colony Life. It was just a side project, as Baba had a full-time job at the time. But this game steadily grew in popularity. In 2005, Baba updated it with a new title, Colony Life Plus. And by 2008, he made the decision to leave his job, dedicate all his time to Colony Life Plus, and form a company named after the game. Colony became Kolo, and Plus became Pla. And that is how the Japanese mobile game studio Kalopla was formed. As the years have gone by, Kalopla has expanded. There are now over 800 employees at the company, and a range of successful mobile games. Kalopla has even acquired a number of other game makers, including Eighting and Mages. We'll come to those in a bit. But in 2014, Kalopla launched their biggest, most successful game to date, a mobile action RPG called Shironeko or White Cat Project. To control your character in Shironeko Project, you drag your finger across the screen. You can even drag in specific directions to use a special attack. The developers called this system Punicon, which can be roughly translated as bouncy controls or springy controls. This Punicon system allows players to play using just one hand, and these types of simple controls are great for smartphone games. Unfortunately, Punicon is where the trouble started for Kalopla. Let me show you this patent, which Nintendo applied for in 2004 and was granted in 2006. It describes a system for a kind of on-screen joystick. Now, there's a lot of technical detail here, but the core idea of this patent is that wherever you place your stylus or finger, the joystick follows. With a regular on-screen control stick, it's easy to lose track of the control area and start dragging around the wrong part of the screen. But instead, Nintendo's patent describes a system where you can drag anywhere on screen and the joystick will come to you. You can see this idea in action in Super Mario 64 DS. So, that sounds a little similar to the Punicon control scheme from Shironeko Project, right? However, it's also similar to the control schemes found in many different mobile games. Despite Shironeko Project becoming extremely popular, Nintendo initially left the game alone. Again, this seems to come down to that code of honor when it comes to patents in the video game industry. However, it's at this point that Kalopla made a big misstep. They filed for a patent on the Punicon control scheme. According to game industry veteran Yoshiki Okamoto, who's worked at Konami and Capcom, Kalopla notified other companies that the Flaticon control scheme was patented and that they weren't allowed to use it, unless, of course, they paid a fee. This obviously goes against the code of honor regarding patents, and I think it's pretty slimy. If no other company in the mobile games industry is allowed to use these on-screen joysticks, then how are players meant to control those games' main characters? The only option at that point is to pay up. Not great. And so it's at this point in the story when Nintendo finally gets involved. In 2016, Nintendo privately notified Kalopla that their game was infringing on a number of Nintendo patents, in particular their 2006 joystick patent. But Kalopla held firm, and for a whole year, the two companies had a series of back and forth discussions about whether Shironeko Project's control scheme was infringing on Nintendo's patent. Kalopla's president and founder, Naruratsu Baba, even visited Nintendo in their home city of Kyoto. But the two companies couldn't find common ground. We have spent more than a year sincerely and politely explaining that our games do not infringe Nintendo's patent rights, but they did not accept our explanation, said Naruratsu Baba. Eventually, after a year of these discussions, Nintendo ran out of patience. And in December 2017, the company decided it was time to sue. Part 3. The Lawsuit. December 22nd, 2017. This is the day Nintendo filed their lawsuit, claiming that Kalopla violated 5 Nintendo patents. They sought damages of 4.4 billion yen, or around 29 million US dollars. January 10th, 2018. Nintendo told press about their lawsuit. After more than a year of discussions, we are very disappointed that we were unable to reach an agreement, they said. Kalopla responded, "There is absolutely no evidence that our games infringe on Nintendo's patent rights," and they stated their intention to defend the case. February 16th, 2018, Nintendo and Kalopla's lawyers began their battle at Tokyo District Court. This is the day the first oral arguments in the case were heard. March 14th, 2018, Nintendo added a 6th patent to their lawsuit related to Shironeko Project's online features. February 19th, 2020, Kalopla updated Shironeko Project and changed the way that the Flaticon control stick worked. Before, you'd drag to use your special attacks, but now you tapped a button. It seemed they hoped this would differentiate it from Nintendo's patent. December 13th, 2020, Nintendo updated the requested damages from 4.4 to 4.95 billion yen, or around 34 million US dollars, citing the fact that the game had been available to download and had been earning money for 2 years since the lawsuit began. April 13th, 2021, Nintendo updated their requested damages a second time, from 4.95 to 9.699 billion yen, or 66 million US dollars. They again cited the passage of time that had passed since filing their lawsuit in 2017. May 13th, 2021, a legal representative from another game company said at least 60 to 70% of the case has taken place. It was looking like Kalopla's goose was cooked, as it were. So far, the case had gone entirely in Nintendo's favor. Every time Kalopla had claimed Nintendo's patents were invalid or that they didn't apply to Shironeko Project, the judge had ruled in Nintendo's favor. And finally, August 4th, 2021, the case was over. Nintendo and Kalopla announced that they'd come to a settlement. Nintendo would drop the lawsuit and would allow Shironeko Project to remain in app stores. In exchange, Kalopla would pay Nintendo a settlement of 3.3 billion yen, or around $22.5 million. We have decided that the best way to resolve this issue as soon as possible is through a settlement, Kolopla said. And that's how things wrapped up, at least for the most part. While internationally, most people knew nothing about this lawsuit, over in Japan it was hot news for a while. And the court of public opinion was firmly on Nintendo's side. This is a fitting end for Kolopla, who trampled on Nintendo's kindness. I'm a Shironeko project player, but in this case the only ones at fault are Kolopla, so I can't complain even if they get totally destroyed. This has all happened because Kolopla didn't just say sorry to Nintendo. Even a child knows how to say that. But Nintendo and Kolopla are now in a kind of funny position, because, like I said earlier in the video, Kolopla owns a few other game developers, including Eighting and Mages. And both of those studios have co-developed games together with Nintendo, even while the lawsuit was dragging on. Pikmin 3 Deluxe was co-developed with Eighting, and the Famicom Detective Club remakes for Switch were co-developed with Mages. Those games were released in 2020 and 2021 respectively, in the midst of the lawsuit with Kolopla, their parent company. Both studios have also developed follow-ups since the lawsuit ended, Pikmin 4 and Emio the Smiling Man, which suggests that Kolopla don't have too much bad blood over this incident. That, or they need the money. But while most of the time Nintendo's legal actions feel a little slimy, going after fan creators and so on, in this case they were doing it for the sake of the Japanese game industry's code of honor. Though I'm sure the 3 billion yen didn't hurt either. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. So, unraveling the truth of this story took a lot of research and scouring through many Japanese news articles and interviews. If you want to help support more videos like this one, consider checking out my Patreon page at patreon.com/thomasgamedocs. Any kind of pledge helps out a huge deal. And on that note, thanks very much to my top tier Patreon supporters: Alison Withenall, Brandon Pimental, Brett and Eric, Candy Crystal, Cyprian Eov, Daryl Jarrow, Ellie Birnbaum, Evan Kinney, Hi There and Bye, J.E., Jim Gilsonen, Kieran Chan, Kelly Wright, Lucas Little, Michael Gunter, Skate or Pie, and Thomas Söderlund.